Hello everybody, my name is Sweatboy and today we're going to talk about Superboy number 25 titled Whom the Gods Would Destroy. I'm going to do this in four parts. The first part, I'm going to tell you who Superboy is, so we're going to discuss the title character and we're going to talk about the supporting characters that you will meet in the book. Then we will talk about what's going on in the cover and what's actually going on in the story inside the book. After that, I would like to talk about the creative team because, as you can see, we have multiple artists and multiple inkers helping out on this issue. So four parts. We'll figure that out. So first of all, who is Superboy? That's why I got this here. Superboy came out in the Reign of Superman saga, which came right after the death of Superman. So you got Cyborg here, Eradicator, Man of Steel, and Superboy, who was at that time called the Metropolis Kid, as this guy was called the Man of Tomorrow, and this guy was called the Last Son of Krypton. Closer look. Essentially, yes, you all know by now, after the Young Justice cartoon and everything, he is the clone of Superboy, and he's had several incarnations. Todd Nauck has drawn Superboy in Young Justice, and Tom Grummett drew him originally, and that's something I would like to talk about because this comic was written by Carl Cassell. And Tom Grummett is one of the artists, along with Jeff Moy, Dean Zachary, and Jay Calafoya. And on inks, we have Doug Hazelwood, who is also part of the usual comic team and creators, with Keith Champagne, Dan Davis, and John Lowe. Right. So Superboy is not exactly Clark Kent when he was young. There is a Superboy pre-Crisis. Let's not get into Crisis stuff. Back in the day when DC acquired Superman stories from Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, they did a little bit of Superman as a child, the adventures of Superman before he became a man. And that's how the concept of Superboy started. And that was actually the first cartoon that I started watching. And first DC cartoon that I started watching, or a superhero cartoon. But this Superboy is an entirely different person, and his set of powers are as different, and they try to emphasize on this all the time. What he has is tactile telekinesis. He can't actually fly, he can't actually lift heavy things, but when he by bringing his tactile telekinesis field around it. So either by touching it, or as we learn later on, even if there is space between them, he could sometimes, the ground that he stands on, he might be able to extend his telekinesis a little further. But when he touches them, he can control them mentally, and that's how he can lift heavy objects. And so he basically does have everything that Superman has, but in a different way. His origins, or his powers, don't come from the sunlight. He has something else, which makes it better for him, I guess. Alright, now we're going to talk about the people that you're going to find in these books. Rex Leach and Roxy Leach, who are father and daughter, are the ones who are, so back in the Reign of Superman stuff, Rex Leach meets Superboy and offers to be his manager, and he tries to market him as much as he can. I think it's a really great take by Dan Jurgens and Carl Cassell, whoever was responsible for it. The Death of Superman stuff, which we will do on another day, talks a lot about merchandise and everything like that is wrong with the industry. Not exactly wrong with the industry, but so yeah. So you're gonna see Rex Leach and Roxy Leach who live together with him in the compound, and you're gonna see Knockout right here, and you're gonna see Double X. Double X is this DNA alien from Cadmus that you might be familiar with from the TV show. And this is actually Dan Turpin from mainstream Superman comics and Metropolis. So that's an interesting character. That's a stand-in, like that's a new dude that we're gonna be introduced to. He's not part of the usual gang, right? So here we got the one picture of Double X that you see in this comic. Actually, I think he's there in two or more. Yeah, so one panel over here, one panel over here. But that's about it. Right. So I think we're gonna have to do this in several parts once again. Right, so let's get down to the story. What's actually going on here? The female Furies are here fighting with Superboy and Knockout. Who are the female Furies? They're like Apocalypse's version of the Amazons. So they're like Darkseid's private bodyguard army. If Gaddafi was Darkseid, these would be his ladies. And that's Lashina, the current leader of the team. Big Barda was also part of the Furies, and I think this character over here is supposed to look like Big Barda. I'm not really sure. So what's going on? The Furies are already trashing the strip club that Knockout used to work at. Okay, so who is Knockout? That's what's interesting about this book. What's cool about this book is that this is actually an origin story for Knockout. It's not mainly about Superboy, although he is in almost every panel of this magazine. It's also featuring a lot of stuff about Knockout and how she came to be who she is. Like, why is she on Earth? Why is she not with these ladies? And why are these ladies trying to hunt her down? That's the main story of this book, but it's also part one of a miniseries called Losing It, which is really cool. In the second book, you'll find Double X doing something really cool, creating a composite mental image using everyone who was in the scene to recreate the scene of a crime to catch the criminal. And I think that was one of the coolest things I've seen in comics. Alright, personally. So I'm gonna skip ahead, and we actually do see a lot more. So we got, who is this? Right, so we got some really cool pictures of Knockout looking like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle almost. I think she really looks like Raphael in this to me. And you know, this is a really cool action shot with both characters. Like there's a, I don't know, I mean he looks tough and she looks tough, and they're both jumping into action. That's really good art. And this part is actually drawn by, so yes, we get to compare a lot of art. That's one of the things I wanted to do here. So this is regular Knockout. Her hair is all puffy and she's kind of bigger than what we just saw in the other panel. This is Tom Grummett's art, and this is Tom Grummett's Superboy. Yes, so instead of actually getting into the story right away, I wanted to show you the pictures, because the pictures are easier to see, and in a comic book, pictures play a huge part, because, you know, we as human beings are more visual than... Look at the detail on his eyes. Like, Tom Grummett's pictures are a little more, I would say, they don't look as cartoonish. They look a little bit more real. So his eyes are there's a little more detail there. You can see some emotion in his mouth and his eyes. That's really nice. Also, the colors and the picture is a little bit flat in the regular Tom Grummett Dark Hazelwood art, which I love. Which I don't know anything about art. Now here we have a picture of Knockout smiling and being really. Now this stuff is, I wouldn't say cartoonish, but also the inks add a little bit of depth to it. Look at Superboy over here. Superboy's face has a lot of shading down here, even around his nose, if you can actually see that. And he is smiling in a nice way. So, so the tough couple of heroes that you saw was, we have more of the tough ones over here. Yeah, I really like that. That's what I want to see in a comic book. And DC doesn't always offer a lot of that stuff, but I think many of us want to see that kind of thing. Right. 29. So 29 was drawn by John Lowe. Is responsible for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle looking tough kind of art. That's him, John Lowe, and Jay Calafiore is the artist, and the inker is John Lowe. And over here, this would be, so page 11 would be Jeff Moy and Keith Champagne. So Keith Champagne is responsible for all these inks, and his partner, did I say Jeff? No. Yes, Jeff Moy. Jeff Moy is responsible for the smiley art there. And also, look at Rex and Roxy and Double X over here. Now, I am so used to seeing Rex drawn in Tom Grummett style, but you do see a lot of, every artist is a little different. So reading this book was kind of interesting. You did see a lot of variations of the same character. You see them smiling in ways that you're not used to. Check out Superboy right here. He looks really scared, and it just doesn't look like Superboy almost. But then we have seen Superboy drawn by many people. I mean, take Superman, someone who's been around since the 40s basically, because it was 1939. But we're close to what, 80 years of Superman, and he was drawn by various people like Kurt Swan. He was drawn by John. Of course, why am I forgetting these names? John Byrne and Dan Jurgens being two of my favorites. Kurt Swan, not as much, but that's just personal preference. There are people who like Kurt Swan better than the people that I just mentioned, but it's like every person adds a different kind of thing to. Now let's take that Superman that you see over here. This was Dan Jurgens, and this was primarily the Superman that I have read in most comics. Long hair and kind of cool. And that's the Superman that we're talking about right now, because Death of Superman had just ended, Return of Superman had happened, and it's been quite a few years. It's been 7 years since that, but I think the current ongoing Superman that goes on during this time was Dan Jurgens. Right. So we also have Knockout's origin story. Right. So over here we have Knockout starting to tell Superboy what actually went down, and look at his face. Look at the use of ink over here. you see a shadow on Superboy's face, but you still see his features, sort of, not really. That's a nice effect they've created. And so this is another artist. This is our fourth couple of artists. This is our fourth artistic pairing, and they're talking about how Granny Goodness used to punish her like she did every, not Amazons, but the Furies, yes. And then this is Big Barda talking to Knockout personally. So Knockout is very lucky to have met Big Barda personally. Of course, I think all the Furies in this cover must have met Big Barda, and like I said, I think that's Big Barda right there. So Big Barda, Knockout was one of the few people who met Big Barda, because soon after this, Big Barda goes away, like she escapes, and right, I'm gonna read a little bit of this so that you get a little context. Get Granny's special attention after this trainee. Get Granny's special attention after this, trainee. You'll bend or be broken. Something to think about if you survive. That's Big Barda's advice to Knockout. And then Knockout tells Barda that she'll survive. I'll survive, Captain. I'll complete Special Powers training, earn my colors, become a Fury. You'll see, you'll be so proud when I take you down in single combat. So she is daring Big Barda right there. So Big Barda and Knockout kind of have a cool moment there. And look at her eyes, look at spit drooling down her face. And that's when we hear about the flames squall. I'm trying to... Right here is where we see the Furies reacting to how Barda had gotten away. They were like, can't believe it. Barda? AWOL over some orphanage brat. It was some time after I'd earned Granny's forgiveness and my colors. That the big event happened, and Barda knew the score. So that's when Barda escaped, and that's what gave Knockout. So right here, Knockout is a trainee with short hair and no costume. And right here, Knockout's got her own costume now, but she is still younger, and Granny Goodness still hates her and punishes her. Hasn't Granny been good to you, Knockout? Shown her love in every way possible? No more. Say goodbye to Granny. And then she was actually, well, I guess Granny banishes Knockout. Unfortunately, climbing up the fire-baked walls of the pit was an impossibility, which left. So some of this are captions from Knockout. You see, it wasn't living or dying that mattered, it was choosing. And as it fell into the flames, they reached up and wrapped around me like a lover's arms. So that's when Knockout's jumping into the fire, or was thrown into the fire. And so there she is. That's kind of cool. So I guess you didn't exactly get what was going on there. It's not completely clear either. But they have a showdown with the Furies. They have a huge brawl. They have a brawl that ends up destroying a lot of the city, a theme that was kind of dealt in Death of Superman, but also, like, I don't see it as a problem that superheroes destroy property while they're fighting someone big like Doomsday or the Furies. Now, if it was just Batman trying to cut a couple of thugs and leaving his batarangs on the rooftops, he could be a little more careful. If it was Daredevil being sued by the city, he could have been a little more careful. But Superman, I mean, these are people with powers that you can't even comprehend. Cut the guy some slack. It's like I mean, if he was trying to take Zod down, then yeah, I mean, he's got to do that to protect people. That's just. Oh, that's a nice picture of Dan Turpin smiling with a cigar, and that's Inspector Makoa. That's another person that you're gonna see in Superboy books. By the way, this happens in Hawaii. Superboy is the hero of Hawaii right now. He needed his own place, and Rex Leach, his manager, his publicist, decided to. So yeah, it leaves the city in a wreck, right? So as far as the story is concerned, it's going to build up into something more over the next 5 issues because it's a 6-part miniseries. But for this one, what you're having is right. So it's a short little stint thing. Now, at the end of this comic, we have this scene which is kind of hot, really hot. Which is, Knockout taking the kid, or the pup as she calls him, to a little island getaway and says that she's learned some moves from the Boom Boom Room, and back when they were in Apocalypse, after every win they would celebrate in a certain way, and now we see her taking her shirt off, and then Superboy's like, is it getting hot here or is it just me? So, the issue is titled Losin It, and I feel like, okay, so Knockout and Superboy do start a small relationship of sorts and run away together and live by themselves, running away from the law. So this whole Bonnie and Clyde thing, it's like it's his first affair. He's already had a couple girlfriends, but he's never been with someone as crazy as Knockout. Knockout has no rules. Knockout just... So I feel like this is an important turning point in Superboy's life. So those are the things that makes this comic really cool and important. The pairings of writer and artist. Several pages. I'm going to take you again through this one more time. This is Tom Grummett. So the inks are different, the art is different, not as much inks I would say, but not too bad. And then this, so that was Doug Hazelwood and Tom Grummett that I just showed you earlier, and this is a different pair. I think it's this is not Jeff Moy, I don't think, yep, this is Jeff Moy and Keith Champagne right here. There you go, guys. Keith Champagne and Jeff Moy. Jeff Moy, the artist, and Keith Champagne, the inker. And then we got Dean Zachary and Dan Davis on Knockout's origin story part. How would you, what would you call these things? Well, look how the glow of the fire is represented on this girl's back, and the shine of the fire over here. Look at the shading or the inks over here. That's all inking, man. All the shadows over here. So how would you categorize the faces? And I mean, I think of all the pictures that you've seen in this book, this one might be the most realistic, as they call it. This one is probably the one with the most lines on just the pencils itself. So yeah, pencils and inkers, those are the correct terms. And the way I see it, I mean, I used to think for a long time that pencilers are the real artists and the inkers just draw on top of that, or the colorists just draw on top of that. But an inker can do a significant amount of change. I realized this looking at 2 pictures of that girl next to each other, and it was the same picture just with different inkers. Huge difference. And even here, like I showed you, I mean, the inking is a little better than the other stuff. That's Dan Davis and Dean Zachary and Dan Davis. Dean Zachary on pencils, Dan Davis on inks. And finally we have J. Calafiore, I'm sorry, that's a hard name to spell, and Jeff Moy, right? No, wait, not Jeff Moy. Jeff Moy was a penciler. This was John Lowe. John Lowe and the other guy. So that's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle brawl stuff. Expressions are completely different, and I mean, what's the name? Jeff Moy and Keith Champagne did a lot of smiles, a lot of surprises, a lot of fear, big eyes and stuff, big mouths. Dean Zachary and Dan Davis did a lot more serious stuff, and a lot of fire and shadows all over the, not just on faces, but pictures of. So you have faces, and then you have zoomed out pictures, and then we have. But yeah, I mean, this is ordinary Tom Grumman stuff. So, as a person who likes to compare stuff, you actually get to look at. Also, I'd like to show you a couple of these things. So the production of the book is really good. We see art and stuff. Let me show you a comic from a few years ago, I would say, 1995. So this one was done in 1995, and this one happened in 1996. March 1996 versus May 1995. So these are almost a year apart, and let's look at the quality of the paper. This one's glossy. As you can see, the light shines on this one, and this one's just matte paper, and it's a rougher paper. Yes, I get it. The light does shine on this, but not in the same way as it shines on this. This is really good quality. This is like over 100 yen per square. Well, this is pretty much, this is not as good. I mean, we got the same. No, this is Dan Davis and Andy Parks. No, wait. Right. Guest penciler. Okay, so we got Dan Davis on inks again, and this is what it looks like over here. And I will show you the difference in this book. So same person has done some of the art on these two pictures, but the quality is much higher in this book than it is in this book, because I would say most of the art in this one was computer animated. I'm not really sure how that works. I think this might have been computer animated as well. So we got the Silicon, the leader of the Silicon Dragons over there. Also, I would like to show you a later book of, so this is another Superman book from 1996 again. So this one came out a little later, and this too has good quality paper, and it's actually a Superman. This is an Adventures of Superman comic, so it's a different title with Superboy in it. But you will see, so I'm comparing two titles, and yeah, of the same year. This is a little, this is of better quality than of this. When you talk about paper, the paper is kind of hard, and it's still shiny, it's glossy, but it's there are more colors on this book than you would find on this. As in, there's a lot of gap stuff on this one. Well, not in this panel right here, but actually it kind of looks similar, I would say. But look at the light shining on Lois's face and also on Superman's. That stuff it's just different, right? So I'm not really qualified enough to say why it's different or how. But anyway, and I would also like to show you a really cool cover here. This is a, what would you call this? Holographic, metallic. I think it's supposed to be metallic because you have Cyborg's face in the background, and you see Superboy in this one as well. You see all of the people who claimed Superman's title. This is the Eradicator, the big face over here. That's Mongol and the Cyborg. This is Superboy, and we also have Supergirl, Green Lantern over here, and right. So the Man of Steel's here, Supergirl's here, and the original Superman is back from the dead. That's what you're gonna see in what's his name's new film next year or something. But I mean, so this once again is of a rougher quality than the other one. So the Silicon Dragons book that I showed you is more in league with this. Because obviously this came before the Superboy title. I mean, Superboy didn't have his own magazine back then, back when this was published. But holding a comic book in your hand is really nice because you get to, it's a nice smell, it's a nice feel, and looking at these and, you know, being able to take your time with the book is really good, as opposed to, say, something like digital or something. And I would also, I realized that this is a cool comic that I also wish to review later on. Is a Robin comic, and it's got Clue Master in it. It's the second appearance of Spoiler, and I wouldn't spoil it for you right now. But right, so speaking of Superboy, it's a teen superhero comic, and it kind of draws from Robin comics, is how I feel. So that's my review right there. So what we have covered is how Superboy came to be, both his origins, both the past that he had connected to Superman and everything, and also how the Robin comics created the area for, well, teen superheroes were always there with Dick, and because this is Tim right here, but we've already had Dick as Nightwing and as leader of the Teen Titans with Speedy, Wally, and Donna, and all these people. So so I'm not really gonna say right. So we covered artists, like how different artists draw the same character in different ways, and how the colors and everything change. And then we talked about well, there wasn't really a lot of story in that one issue that I showed you, except for how it could be important to. So yeah, what makes this book important? Original writer, original penciler, original inker, original creative team, plus different creative teams on different pages. So as you flip through the pages, you see different versions of the same character, and this might be where Superboy loses his virginity. Losing it. And also this was an important part of his life, because if you read the miniseries Losing It, you are going to see, um, yeah, so Supergirl gets into a fight with Superboy, and we go through the question of like if Superboy is actually worthy of being Superboy, because if you take a look at Superboy, he's wearing a leather jacket and he's got a funny haircut, which people criticize all the time, and this is basically Superboy if he was younger and if he indulged in certain other things, as in if he wasn't afraid to have a little fun, but if he also was, I mean, I think Superboy's got an earring in one of these comics, and it goes to the morality of the like how hard it is to be Superman. Like the question that they raise in Losin is if Superboy really deserves to wear the S symbol on his chest. Is he worthy of it? And so it's not trial of Superman. Superman did have to go through a trial himself, but in this instance, I think the question that they bring up is really important. Like, what does it mean to be Superman? Is it just having powers, or is it being a good guy inside? Because when you talk about superheroes, yes, Hercules was a hero who became a hero because of his exceptional size or his strength, because he could do things that other people didn't. But these are superheroes, and the word super covers the traditional sense of what a Greek hero is. So we have supervillains and superheroes. In this sense, in the current sense of superheroes, I think the word hero and villain defines if they're good people or bad people. Thank you very much.